Folks, the dynasty occurs when you do not expect it. The Vegas Raiders are just fine. They're going through a little bit of a cold streak. The Vegas Raiders, it shows you how sorry the rest of the AFC is when they go on a streak of losing two consecutive games, that they're still holding a playoff spot. And this ain't the end of the world. By the law of diminishing returns, we should see Vegas more likely to win the next game. It was very hard to go beat all of the combination of LA and Baltimore and Pittsburgh on the road. Pittsburgh will be good because Pittsburgh is going to be 3-3. You play Baltimore at home. You have a tiebreaker. What next week is all about Vegas turns flipping the script and turning the tables. It's just like the 2001 2002 Patriots. That team started 5-5. That team was mediocre. Nobody expected the Patriots to win the Super Bowl when they had a 5-5 record, but instead they went on a big winning streak and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, and they got lucky with the tuck rule. That is what is going to happen. People think the Raiders are an average 3-2 team, but obviously that is not going to be the case. The Vegas Raiders will defeat the Denver Broncos Raiders style on the road like it did out east, this time in high altitude against its top rival getting beaten to the curb by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And considering that Vegas was leading the Steelers, that shows you how bad the Broncos are. Everybody knows the Raiders are going to defeat the Broncos, right? Or the pundit's going to overhype Denver. That's exactly what is going to happen next week. Dak Prescott is still in the top 5 in passing, even after a down week this week. When you go to NFL quarterback statistics, you're going to see that when they count this week's stats, that Derek Carr is still in the top 5. So you have a guy who is still statistically throwing more yards than Kyler Murray. That shows you that the Raiders have an elite quarterback to win. And look at an elite defense. This was an elite defensive performance today against the Bears, not allowing them much room. It was a lack of support from the offense. And you saw that the Raider defense has a page in its playbook to take down both Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, having beaten both of them already in action. So, what is next week's games about? The Chiefs lost today, which means that Denver Broncos are going to be in the playoff race for a long time. And because of conference record, the Denver Broncos would be ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs, even if the Broncos were to lose, and even if the Chiefs were to win. If the Chiefs were to win, they would be 2-3 in the conference. Well, actually, Denver, they're 2-2 in the conference, so both of them would be 2-3. So it would probably be about a record against the division, which I mean, the Broncos haven't played a divisional game yet. Well, the Broncos would be 0-1, losing to the Raiders, and the Chiefs would always be 0-1, losing to the LA Chargers. So by strength of victory, I think is how they determine it, not strength of schedule, I think. Strength of victory, Kansas City 500, Denver 0.133. So we know that the Chiefs will be tied with the Denver Broncos next week. So the Chiefs will be back in the playoff picture. And now the Chiefs are number 6 because they have the tiebreaker over Cleveland. So this is how Kansas, even when they're finishing with the best record, we will see the number 6 Kansas City Chiefs. Now, at the top, at the top of the AFC, we see Baltimore winning. Now, what is going to make the quest for the number 1 seed very complicated is that, you see, Baltimore would own the tiebreaker over the Chargers. So the Chargers would have more of a difficult path of getting home field. But already Baltimore beat the LA Chargers. Baltimore has a tiebreaker over Kansas City. But the thing is that the Raiders had the head-to-head tiebreaker over Baltimore. So Baltimore, I think, is going to lose a couple of divisional games. But the Raiders are in the hunt for the number 1 overall seed. We know what's going to happen over at the Mile High. The Kansas City Chiefs will be in it. because the Chiefs have to win so they stay in the playoff hunt. Because virtually you've got a one game back of the Denver Broncos, and Pittsburgh's going to defeat the Seattle Seahawks next week. Pittsburgh will be 3-3. I mean, Kansas City. This game against Washington football team. This is a game that they have to win to stay in the playoff conversation. So the Chiefs are now a wild card team. We've seen how horrible the Chiefs have been on the offensive line and the defensive line, which the Raiders have had some injury problems on the offensive line. But I do believe that it hasn't been that bad to keep their car from being elite. The offensive line was just suffering from some injuries, and it wasn't that bad when it defeated the Baltimore Ravens. It just had a tough game, in my view, against the LA Chargers, for example. And this game, I think this game, clearly, this was not the Raiders at all. They purposely took a dive this game so the Bears could have their better off from the Khalil Mack trade narrative, where the Bears and the Raiders are both 3-2. It's like, oh, the Raiders gonna flunk out again. That's what the Bears did. They have to play Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. So like the Chicago Bears gonna be on the bad end of that trade, and now the Browns lose to set up. Even if Oakland, even if Vegas defeats because Vegas defeats the Broncos, this means that the Browns are afforded to lose a game to then Cleveland. Let's see when they play at the same time. So Cleveland would be out of the playoff picture. Against Denver, it'd be a must-win game, and I think this happens when Cleveland is on national TV because they play against Denver on a Thursday. 3-3 versus 3-3. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win the game? Because it is the Browns edge to match 43, and this is why Cleveland's gonna be 4-3. We do see that they're gonna be 3-3 against Kyler Murray. The fact that they're Cleveland, the fact that Pittsburgh's gonna be 3-3, and Pittsburgh is gonna be competing with Cleveland. They're gonna try to get back into the playoff race. Um, you know, Cleveland, they got to get rid of the same old Browns narrative. That's what Thursday is going to be all about. We find out if the Browns are going to tank and become a bad team, miss the playoffs, same old Browns, or if Baker is going to be elite and he's going to keep him in the playoff race. So I think that's what that game's going to be all about. Is if Cleveland can stay in it, and that's a big call for Kevin Stefanski. Because of that, Vegas would be in the playoff race for the number one seed. Don't forget that there's some winnable games coming up. There's the Broncos, there's the Eagles, and then there's the Giants. So like the Raiders can beat some pretty easy teams coming up. This is a perfect time for John Gruden to turn the table. But then we go up to the Sunday night football game in November. That game, people are going to say, oh, Vegas hasn't played anybody. They're going to disrespect them. They're going to overlook the fact that the Raiders defeated the Broncos. The Raiders briefly got back in the game against LA Chargers. I mean, Raiders start out slow that game. Overall, you're going to like how the Raiders are doing, considering that the Steelers are going to be a contender. They defeated a conference contender, Pittsburgh. They defeated conference contender, Baltimore. The Raiders get the opportunity to defeat the Chargers to prove that they can beat them. I mean, divisional games, a lot can happen with that. You're going to find that the Raiders, if with some help by teams such as the Bengals or whatnot, they're in a playoff race that need a win, need to go get some help to get some head-to-head advantages. And what I liked about today is that today didn't hurt the conference records at all for Vegas. Losing against an NFC team, this helps in that you don't worsen your conference record, and that's why it was a great thing that the Raiders lost to the Bears versus Denver's, because your conference record is 3-1 versus the AFC, and that'd be 4-1 after Denver. And this is what can give the Raiders the tiebreaker over Buffalo. Because considering that Buffalo is 3-1 in the conference, the better conference record is going to win the conference this year if it doesn't come down to a combination of Baltimore, the Chargers, and Vegas. And if these teams slip up, I mean, Baltimore, these are NFC games coming up that need to show what John Gruden and company are capable of doing in terms of being a prime contender and establishing that mentality uh, by defeating the Kansas City Chiefs. Now you're looking at all the Chiefs' problems. They've got a bad offensive line, a bad defensive line. Um, their defense, their secondary is not covering. They're not getting any pass rush. You're making mistakes offensively. You're literally giving up a lot of yardage. Meanwhile, the Vegas defense is coming to play. The Vegas Raiders is shutting down the run. The Vegas Raiders are getting very physical at point of attack. And partially to help for this is Frosty Rucker, a defensive line coach, a fine product for the Bruce Arians coaching tree. Too bad he's not with the Raiders anymore, but we saw how he has helped out the defensive line, has helped out Max Crosby, for example, is not very great in that defensive line. And the Raiders are finding more playmakers, more linebackers to make plays at the line of scrimmage. You got to admire the vision that John Gruden has set out, defeating the Browns last year, defeating the Chiefs last year, the Vegas Raiders getting healthy, defeating all the contenders right now early on in the race. This is what you got to like about John Gruden. And I just believe that they're on a streak in which clearly they're not playing their best, but when they feel like playing their best, they can play their best. That's why they're going to be just fine. And who knows if the Bengals keep on beating some easy teams and the Vegas Raiders have to go in and have a clutch head-to-head game against the Cincinnati Bengals right after the Chiefs. So, like, in a way, this is still a big matchup every single week. In the standings and the way that they are, just pinpoint exactly what the script of this title run will be. The Vegas Raiders will definitely run the table, and the Bills Tennessee game is going to be big because Vegas has a better record than Tennessee. They'd be tied with Tennessee if Tennessee wins. If Tennessee defeats Buffalo, it's pretty much Vegas up against Baltimore. So if they do lose that game to the Titans, this means that the Bills are not as super as people think that they are. And Patrick Mahomes looked a little uncharacteristic today. It looks like he was not making the right decisions. It was very odd to see, but I do believe that Kansas City is just fine. That it just means that we're hyping up Buffalo in the number one seed race. That's who the league wanted. And then the Chiefs can have a late run. People think they're going to flame out of the season with their defense. But then the New England Patriots, if the New England Patriots win, then suddenly the Patriots are back. Who knows if that game against the Browns eliminates them from the playoff race? Who knows? But Dallas coming up, I think the Patriots will win that game. So they get in that race. That's who they want to win that game. So Chargers are playing good because they got established a fan base, and that's why the league wants them to continue to win home games and be in first place. It's because we're trying to be a Super Bowl contender is what the Chargers will sell, and that's how they're going to PSLs and trying to build a fan base in LA. But obviously, we'll see Vegas come out and play. Although the Chargers may eventually get a Super Bowl, who knows? Do think that they'll play in the Super Bowl someday, but not anytime soon. But within a window of opportunity for Justin Herbert, they can make it to a Super Bowl. But now it's the Vegas time to be a dynasty during the contract life of John Gruden. This should be something special. Uh, who knows if there's any injuries to Lamar Jackson? It was a hoax. He's just fine. There's nothing they can do about it. He was not employed by the NFL when he did this. He was by ESPN. Suspended for a game, whatever, big deal, whatever. Tom Brady got suspended 4 games because of, deleting the messages and the evidence and getting rid of his phone. And the NFL suspended him for the Deflategate hoax scandal investigation. Tom Brady was suspended 4 games in 2016 and 1 in 2017. So same thing was done to the Patriot dynasty. That's why this suspension is all for people to hate on the Raiders. Like John Gruden, some kind of villain. They're trying to make him out to be the next Bill Belichick. But who can hate on someone so passionate, who's so charismatic, a lively figure on the sidelines, can joke around? That's why we like Chucky. But you gotta like his killer swag, a pirate killer mentality. And clearly, he is changing the culture. And you'll see what John Gruden is capable of doing. Go play like a Raider every single day. Oh, kick their ass. Be a lively invader. Yeah, you see, the Raider got to be the invader. You got to inspire them. That is what needs to happen. There's no doubt about it. That's what we need to happen right now. And he will get it done. There's no doubt about it. This guy is the best. He really is. This guy is number one. And you'll see right here in a second. More than anything, I want better execution. We clear on that? I want better fucking execution. I want better fucking execution. That's right. These players played for John Gruden. The Raiders came back. You think this team was putting on John Gruden at all? Hardly. I guess the league wanted to hype up the Bears-Packers game by having the Bears win. This is why they have to hype up the Thursday game. That's sort of my theory why I went with the Eagles instead of the Panthers, and that the narrative would be that the Panthers are a pretender. That's what that game was all about. Maybe that's what they're trying to say with the Raiders. So they get the Goyim to think that, oh my God, Raiders are going to choke out. We're LA's real team. The Raiders. The Raiders. This is my theory that the Cowboys cannot make it to the Super Bowl because it is the Raiders. It's got gematria 53. Even the narrative would be that the Cowboys would be 5-4 in the Super Bowl because they have a 5-3 record in the Super Bowl. And this means Dallas loses the Super Bowl because it's Inglewood, California. That's 54. This is why the narrative is for Dallas to lose. I do agree that they do defeat Aaron Rodgers when they win the Super Bowl. Now, because I do think that maybe Rodgers plays on even after he wins the Super Bowl. Rodgers is too much at 63. Cowboys would be 6-3 in the Super Bowl. I mean, Aaron Rodgers would be the defending Super Bowl champion. The Packers would be the defending Super Bowl champion. Then this means the Cowboys will be the next team to win the Super Bowl. Right after the Packers win, and Cowboys lose. Cowboys are 11-9, but then we're gonna see Cowboys, Packers in the divisional round in 2022, 2023. That's why Rodgers is staying with the Packers and winning the Super Bowl with the Packers. This Matt LaFleur guy made the 2 straight AFC Championship games. He's pretty good. Maybe the Packers know what they're doing, sticking with them. Maybe they know they're just throwing the script for Tom Brady and the San Francisco 49ers, the year before in the NFC. But clearly, we see the big win against Kansas City. Actually, all they feel like, all they are going to say is that, oh, you played the Chiefs. Oh, my God, you played the Chiefs. And the people hate on the Chiefs again. The Chiefs win, and then they lose to Vegas. Oh, yeah. You see, that's what I see the Chiefs doing. Who knows if the Chiefs, if they lose in the AFC, let's say they're 5-4 or something, or 5-3, and then they become 8-3, and then they lose to Derek Carr. I'm going to be taking note of conference records when we get to the playoffs too. That's something else that I do in my equations. And the fact that Cincinnati is coming up for Baltimore. And so, this is why the gematria prognosis of looking into the following week is good, because we see Baltimore's 41 and LA Chargers are 4-1. This is how I knew they win today. This is how I knew they would. And now the Patriots are going to win because it is Dak Prescott that is gematria 42. New England is going to be back in the playoff race. They're going to face off against Cleveland on some point the following week after next week's opponents. This is how we know that Vegas is going to be in that race for the number one seed. They will win. There's no doubt about it. Vegas can easily win its next 3 games. We will be here in November. We'll be ready to say that they're going to beat the Chiefs and they're going to be in the playoffs. And they're going to get the number one in the playoffs over the Buffalo Bills. They'll lose to the Titans. And the Raiders are better than the Titans. They have a better record than them. The Titans will lose that one game at some point. I mean, you just know it's going to happen. You play Jacksonville in the Jets. I mean, if the Titans beat the Bills, then they'll just lose a game the following week. I mean, they'll probably lose to the Saints or the Rams coming up. I mean, they'll probably lose to the Chiefs. I mean, they probably will. They'll probably lose to the Chiefs. I mean, now it is pretty much exposed already. We all do know that the Chiefs are going to be 6-3. I can explain why.